What's up, everybody? Bringing you a comparison between the Gamo Maxxim Gen 1 versus Gen 2. Both of these are Gamo's break barrel repeating rifles. We have the Gen 1 magazine here, Gen 2, and just going to go over some of the differences between the two. They're both 22 cal hunting. That's what this green band is here for. And for all intents and purposes, it's the same rifle. There are some key differences, though. You will notice that I do have the Gamo 3-6 scope on the Gen 1 and not the Gen 2, and that's because I'm actually going to be putting a different scope on the Gen 2. The Gen 1 or the Gamo scope, the 3-9, it's okay. I'm not going to say it's bad, but you would want to upgrade eventually. There is no adjustable objective on here, and I think it's sighted in for about 20 yards, more or less 25 yards. So anything before or after that, you're going to be kind of blurry, especially at that higher magnification. That's not a deal breaker for me, but I'm kind of a optics snob, so I wanted something a little nicer for the Gen 2. So the first thing that's the most obvious is the Gen 1 magazine versus the Gen 2 magazine. Gen 1 magazine is the vertical loading, whereas Gen 2 has the horizontal. It lays flat, which makes for a smaller profile, which means your scope mount is going to be a little bit lower as well. So this one here, it looks like it has a high scope mount just to be able to clear this magazine holder or whatnot, this loading mechanism here. Whereas I believe you could use medium rings or a medium mount to clear this here, especially if you have something like a 40mm objective. That's probably one of the better options for these types of rifles. I mentioned before, they're both break barrel. So be aware that if you get something that is not made for break barrels, you do run the risk of ruining your scope. There are some pretty hefty scopes like Hawk, and I mean, I'm sure there's some more out there. Anything with like an etched reticle would probably be okay for this particular rifle, just because it's not a Magnum break barrel. For a Magnum break barrel, you're going to want something that's rated for Magnum recoil or double recoil. Speaking of recoil, both of these do have the RRR rail. I believe that's the recoil reducing rail. Not sure if it works, to be honest with you. It could just be a novelty, but they're both there. To be honest with you, I would just Loctite everything on any of these kind of break barrels here, just so that you don't have anything moving on you and don't have your optics sliding backwards. You do want to make sure you don't mount anything to this back piece here that's separate from the other rail. I believe there's some, I want to say nylon tubes in here that act as a buffer for the recoil. Again, I'm not sure of the mechanics. I'm not sure if it's more of a novelty or anything else, but that's the theory behind it. Not sure if it works, but hey, your miles may vary depending on the optic that you put on your rifle. So differences. So we already talked about the magazine. Rail is the same. You'll notice that the overall look of the rifle is about the same, but there are some key differences. If you notice here on the stock, you do on the Gen 1 have a straight flat bottom here. On the Gen 2, you'll notice a little bit of a, looks like a recurve here. And that's actually kind of nice. If you can see here on the stock itself, it's a little more textured. It makes for a better grip. I really like that a lot. On the Gen 1, you don't have that so much. Again, that's not a deal breaker. You know, this is more flat. And it does have this lip up on top here for you to put your fingers and your thumb. This does feel nice, especially if you have larger hands like myself. I do wear about an extra large glove. So this feels okay for me. If you have smaller hands, I imagine that might be a little bit of a stretch. And that's just, you know, to make room here for the break barrel action. On the Gen 2, however, it looks like they try to fix that here by giving you a little bit of a palm swell on both sides of the rifle, which I think is actually very nice. I think this will accommodate a lot more people with different size hands, so that's pretty nice. And if you do have larger hands, I guess you could put it up here on this little lip, but honestly, even with my hands, this is pretty good. Now you will notice that the Gen 1 has more of a rifle stock, whereas in the grip of your wrist is more in line, well, kind of like a rifle, whereas the Gen 2 has more of a pistol stock. Now they're both rifle stocks. It's not an actual pistol grip or a sporting grip, but it is does have more of that, I wouldn't call it a 90-degree, but more in that line of angle, I should say, of grip. So if we put this, I'm gonna try and angle this here so you can get everything in camera. Put this on top here, you'll see that the size is pretty much right on. It's about the same size. It almost feels like the Gen 2 barrel might be just a little bit longer. It does feel that way. You can see here where the stock ends here, the foregrip ends on the Gen 1. The Gen 2 goes out about another 1.5 inches. And it looks like, there's a little bit of a, that's an exaggeration there. Let's put these back. That looks like there's a little bit of a difference there on the Gen 2. Not much, maybe about 3/4 of an inch or so. Longer barrel. And that does make a little bit of sense because with alloy pellets, the Gen 1 is rated for, I believe it's 975 feet per second, whereas the Gen 2 is at 1,000. So that might be the longer barrel length. I don't know if it's the piston that's inside the Gen 2. That might also be it. It might be a couple of things that play into there. But as I was mentioning before, when we put these on top of each other, and I'm going to try and line up the triggers here, you can see the difference in the grips there. Here, or as opposed to the Gen 2 on the bottom, you have more of that vertical grip as opposed to a traditional rifle grip on the Gen 1. I like that a lot more on the Gen 2 than I do on the Gen 1. Not that the Gen 1's pretty bad, not that the Gen 1's bad at all. It's just a little more comfortable. It has more of that 1911 sort of, 90-degree grip going on there. And I think that just gives you a little bit more control. The cheek well here is actually a little bit more pronounced, and it's got a little bit more of a hump here. I know it's kind of hard to tell, but this little lip that they put on here just rides your cheek just in the right spot here. And I do believe because the mounts are lower on here, you do get a better purchase of the rifle, and you do get a better look out of the scope. And it just makes for a more comfortable feel when you're out there, especially if you're hunting out in the desert or anything like that. And comfort is just makes all the difference. Scopes are the same. Honestly, I would probably just upgrade whenever you can. Again, they're not a deal breaker, but they're free scopes, so you get what you pay for. What else? Same cat trigger on both of these. I haven't had a chance to actually take this one out yet. I'll do a little review on that afterwards, but same cat trigger. I imagine they're about the same. I'll check to see the pull weight on both of these. Well, probably this one. I think I'm going to be giving this one away to a relative who's been eyeballing it for a little while. And then, yeah. Oh, also, Gen 2 has a little cubby here for an extra magazine. That's pretty cool. I do like that. I wish all the Gen 2s had this. This reminds me of an AR pistol grip, like something like Magpul or something, where you can have your little tools in there and stuff like that. I mean, obviously for an AR you wouldn't be able to put a magazine, but for this one you can. It doesn't make you feel anything. I know it sounds hollow, but it feels just as good as the Gen 1. In fact, I think it feels a little better. And if anybody's wondering, you can't use a Gen 1 magazine into or Gen 2 magazine into a Gen 1 or Gen 1 into Gen 2. They're not interchangeable. They're completely different. They may look similar, but they are different. They will not work. Also, I don't believe you can use the Gen 2 inertia magazine that comes with the Magnum in anything else besides the Magnum. You might be able to use it, but I don't believe the inertia feature will work. And I don't believe the regular Gen 2 magazines will work in the Magnum. I think I don't think they'll feed, but I'll try that out. I'll let you guys know. I'll look into that a little bit more. What else do we got? Everything else looks pretty much the same. Well, not pretty much the same, but everything else, I guess, internally is pretty much the same. I'm going to be putting I think a Hammers scope on this. I'll let you guys know how that works out. And it's going to be my first time using that particular company, so I'm kind of interested. They are supposedly rated for Springers and Magnum, particularly brake barrels. So we'll see how that works. I don't think it's a net reticle, but I don't know for sure. I would say on these particular rifles, a 3x9 is probably all you need. You're probably going to go ahead and sight this in at about 25 yards, and I don't think you'd be able to push it past 40 yards. Even 40 yards, you're kind of pushing it there, I think, personally, for anything ethical. Anything about, the size of a little rabbit or something like that. But squirrels or anything like that, you should be just fine. And then, yeah, I think that's about it. If you guys have any questions or comments, just leave them down there. If I missed anything, or yeah, if you want to see anything else, I am going to be posting a few more videos on some other brake barrels. Spoiler alert, they're also Gamos. I don't have any other besides Gamo brake barrels at the moment, or Gamo air, or any kind of other air rifles at the moment. That'll change in the future, but for the moment, that's what I'm going to be focusing on. So yeah, like I said, if there's any questions or comments, concerns, whatever, write them there. I don't know, talk to your freaking senator or whatever, I don't care. But I will be posting some more of this stuff in the future. And if you want to subscribe, sweet. I think you can see my dog there. See him? He's right here. Good boy. Take it easy.